Have you ever just stopped and wondered what life actually is? I mean, really thought about it. It seems obvious, right? A rock isn't alive, a person is. But where do you draw that line? Well, today we're going to find out. We are going on a journey to find the absolute smallest thing that we can definitively call alive. So let's just ask the big question right up front. What does it actually mean to be alive? It sounds like a simple question, but you'll see it gets surprisingly tricky the smaller and smaller we go. To even begin to answer this, we need to know who to ask, right? Which field of science tackles this question? And that, of course, is biology, the official study of life itself. The name itself is a huge clue. It comes from two Greek words, bios, which means life, and logos, which means study. So biology is literally the study of life. It's the science that's all about understanding the systems that make something a living thing.
Okay, so to guide our search, we can't just guess. We need a clear set of rules. Think of this as our investigative checklist. If something ticks all the boxes, hey, it's alive. If it doesn't, well, it's not. Simple as that.
So what are these rules? Turns out, biologists have boiled it down to two non-negotiable conditions. First up, metabolism. This is basically the sum of all the chemical stuff an organism does to stay up and running. Eating, breathing, growing, all to create and use energy. And second, autonomous reproduction. And that word, autonomous, is absolutely crucial. It means the ability to make copies of itself, by itself, without needing to hijack something else. All right, we've got our rules. Now the fun begins. It's time to start our journey down through the scales of size. We are going to zoom in, way, way in, far beyond what the naked eye can see, to find our smallest possible candidate for life. So let's get our bearings here on this microscopic map. We start with a single atom, just 0.1 nanometers across. You put atoms together, and you get things like proteins, which are around 10 nanometers. A bit bigger than that, you find a virus, clocking in at about 100 nanometers. But then there's this massive jump in scale to get to a cell, which can be thousands of times bigger. And I keep saying nanometer, but what even is that? It's 1/1000th of a meter. It's a scale that is so fantastically small, it's almost impossible to wrap your head around. We're talking about the size of individual atoms and molecules here. Now, if you zoom out a bit, the next step up is the micrometer. That's 1/1,000,000th of a meter. So it's still incredibly tiny, but it's 1,000 times bigger than a nanometer. And this is the scale we need to be on to really talk about life's most basic building block, the cell.
Okay, so let's look back at our scale. There's this one candidate that sits in a really interesting spot, right on the edge, causing all sorts of arguments: the virus. So let's put it to the test. Let's solve the case of the virus. Is it alive or not?
So how does a virus do against our two-point checklist? First rule, metabolism. Does a virus have it? Nope, not at all. It can't generate its own energy, it just sits there. Second rule, can it reproduce on its own? No way. A virus is totally helpless by itself. But a living cell? Yeah, it does both. It has a metabolism and it can reproduce all on its own. And that, right there, brings us to the verdict. According to our rules, a virus is not truly alive. It just isn't. It exists in this weird, fascinating gray area, something that's not quite a living thing, but it's not just a boring, inert chemical either. The official scientific term for a virus is an obligate intracellular parasite. I know, it's a mouthful, but it's actually the perfect description. Obligate means it has to, it has no choice, and parasite means it has to hijack the internal machinery of a living host cell just to make copies of itself. On its own, it can't do a thing. So, if the virus fails our test, what passes? What's left? This brings us to the true foundation of life, and it raises another question. Is life built from just one of these basic units, or from trillions? And here it is, the answer to our big question. The smallest, tiniest structure that can check both boxes, that can run its own metabolism and reproduce all by itself, is the cell. The cell is the fundamental unit of all life. And from this one tiny unit, all life as we know it scales up into two basic flavors. First, you have unicellular organisms, like bacteria, where that one single cell is the entire creature. And then you have us, multicellular organisms, like plants, fungi, and animals, which are basically these incredibly complex communities of many, many cells all working together. And when I say many, I mean a number that is just hard to comprehend. The average human being is made of about 100 trillion cells. That's a 1 followed by 14 zeros. Think about that. 100 trillion individual living things all cooperating in perfect harmony to make, well, to make you. Which really just leaves us with one final, kind of mind-bending thought to chew on. We figured out that a single cell, by definition, is alive. So if one cell is life, what do 100 trillion of them, all organized into a single thinking, feeling person, become? Now that's a question that goes way beyond just biology.